On behalf of Crime Point Foundation and e-magazine Presents, I welcome you all to the 27th edition of Dialogue to discuss about the recent IT laws governing the social media platforms and OTT. We have two professionals here. Mr. Navi from Bangalore. He is a cyber law consultant and cybersecurity expert. Foundation of Data Protection Professionals of India. He is a chairman and founder. And we have with us Mr. Rajendra. He is the chairman of Digital Security Association of India and also a cyber advocate. Besides, we have two journalists joining us for the discussion. Mr. Jai Krishnan, a senior journalist from Delhi, and Mr. Samaran, a mobile journalist from Chennai. Now let me start with the discussion with Mr. Navi. Sir, what was the background for bringing up this law? Can you explain in brief?
See, sometime around 2018, when there was a lot of this fake news which was going around in the market, and there were riots coming up. Basically, it was WhatsApp related fake news. A need was felt that there should be some mechanism by which law enforcement would be able to trace the originators of fake news. So basically, to control fake news and to provide greater, you can say, credibility to the media, government actually thought of bringing in this regulation. Though today media, some people may think that this is actually curtailing their freedom. This actually enhances the credibility of the media. For example, now all these social media intermediaries, if they are classified as significant social media intermediaries, they are mandated to ensure in their technology platform that if a user wants himself to be identified, then that should be possible through the system itself. Now, Twitter has been having this blue tick, but the recognition given to anybody is at the discretion of Twitter. They don't have an undisputable policy. So the general feeling is that if they are of a particular political disposition, Twitter will give the blue tick. Otherwise, there will be difficulty. Now, what the government is talking of is that every organization like a WhatsApp or any other messaging organization where somebody's opinion is shown for the public, that person should own that content. The question of having anonymous discourses, which could be damaging in some way, is considered as not healthy for the development of journalism. So that was the basic requirement. So this particular first version in 2018 was released, that is the intermediary guidelines of 2018, which was actually an amendment to whatever was present in 2011. What we are talking of is actually 2011 onwards, there has been this intermediary guidelines. But the media was not part of it. Digital media was not actually thought of as something which has to be regulated under the Ministry of Information Technology, because INB ministry was regulating the media. And in fact, way back when Kapil Sibal was the ministry head, he had first proposed that all websites should get themselves registered with the government of India. Obviously, nobody liked that, and it went off at that time. Subsequent to that, now the question has come that fake content is on the increase. We need to do something to regulate it. One way to regulate it is to give an identity to the person who is speaking so that he will be responsible for what he says. There was some time back, people used to ask, why can't Facebook have Aadhaar-based identification? That would have been a little too much to ask for. Instead of that, government said, voluntarily, if somebody wants to declare his identity, we should make it possible. And against his message, that identity should show. That this is one of the requirements. The second was this, in the case of WhatsApp, origination or the person who originated the message should be identified. So both these essentially were part of the, you can say, regulating the medium from the point of view of curbing the crime. Along with that, of course, grievance redressal had to be addressed, because there is no point in having a regulation without knowing to whom I have to send an email or something like that, because most of these international media giants, they don't have a local contact person, and that makes it very difficult to contact any responsible person in case of any law enforcement issue. So they included in these guidelines that there should be a local office, then there should be a compliance officer. So with that, this 2018 version had come, and now, of course, the last May 25, 2021, for the first time, Ministry of Information Technology and the Ministry of INB sat together and gave out the guideline, which was an intermediary guideline along with the digital media ethics, a code of ethics. Of course, it is since then it's 3 months. Now they had given 3 months for all digital media organizations, whoever had to do something of compliance. Nobody took any action. And now suddenly people are worried that we have come to 26th of May and there is a problem. This time we also have these problems of WhatsApp privacy issue, and later on now whatever is going on in terms of the case in the Delhi High Court.
I will come next. I will come next for that. Now that the new guidelines have been issued on 25th of February, it's not 25th of May as you said, it is 25th of February, and now it has come into effect from 26th May onwards. What are the important aspects, and who are all the people who have to register? Rajendran, can you just say in a briefly? Then we'll go for a discussion.
Thank you, Srinivasan. Yeah, having got the opportunity, let me thank Srinivasan for the rare privilege and honor. Now we, in fact, very briefly, he said everything. Only about 2-3 points, which a couple of points, which I thought I can add, supplement to what Navi said. The guidelines given by the ministry on 26th February was not suddenly born from the blue. It was a directive given by the Supreme Court in the Prajwala case in 11th December 2018. Now we also must be aware of it. In Prajwala case in 11th December 2018, about 2.5 years back, Supreme Court itself told the central government, why don't you come out with guidelines or rules or any such thing to regulate the social media, including particularly the social media intermediaries, so that the menace of fake news and child pornography, any such obnoxious, objectionable content be curbed. This is one thing. Then Supreme Court itself followed it up in its order on 24th September 2019, after about 10 months of the earlier order, followed up. Why you are still not doing it? So at the behest, at the request, on the instructions of Supreme Court only, the central government came out with these guidelines on 25th February. 25th February guidelines, actually, it expires today. From yesterday, it is effective. The guidelines basically, it speaks about two things. One is about the OTT platform. Second is about the social media intermediaries. They classified as general social media intermediaries. Second is the significant social media intermediaries, SSME. Significant social media intermediaries, government said that anybody with more than 5 million, that is 50 lakh users, will come under this category. And in the guidelines itself, the government of India has said that WhatsApp has a 53 crore database, 50 crore registered users. YouTube has a 45 crores. Facebook has 41 crores. Instagram has 21 crores, and Twitter also has 1.95 crores, close to 2 crores. So these giants come under the category of significant social media intermediaries. They come under this specific criteria which the guidelines stipulate. The criteria, in fact, are very simple. You should have a contact person in 24/7 availability, a contact person, a physical availability, a physical address in India. Don't say that you are doing a business in India, you don't have any office in India. even for serving a notice, don't put the government into very great difficulty that I have to send a notice to US. I don't know who in India is taking care. Like this kind of a technological and administratively procedural legal hurdle should not be faced by the government. So from that angle only, government has come out. These are all very simple guidelines. So this is the preliminary thing. And as the debate goes, probably I'll be able to share more ideas.
Thank you, Rajendra. Now, I have one small question before I pass it on to the floor. Is it the social media platform giants like Facebook, Twitter, and all versus Indian government, or whether it is against the Indian sovereignty? Even yesterday, I saw your note in your site, navi.org. You had said that they are fighting against the Indian sovereignty. Navi, and then we will go for a discussion.
Say, WhatsApp says that Indian government, whatever law it has passed, is not constitutional according to Indian constitution. So sitting in USA as a commercial organization, they are interpreting that Indian government is not doing something correctly and that has to be changed. Twitter also makes the same kind of statement that freedom of expression, we will take care of freedom of expression in India. Government of India cannot take care of this. The attitude of these media giants is that they are bigger than the local government. In fact, they still are basking under the Middle East, wherever they had the success where they brought about regime changes by spreading by using the Twitter or WhatsApp as a medium of communication. But what they are trying to do now is they feel that they can manipulate the information there and still establish themselves as more powerful than a government authority. So law is the prerogative of the sovereign state. Now, whether it's a good law or bad law, that is something which the courts of the country have to decide. That interpretation cannot be left to the commercial organization, even in India, less so outside India. But these organizations are trying to get into that area. And today they are saying that subordinate legislation, which is this rules, is ultra vires the Information Technology Act. Now, these are all matters of interpretation where even two Supreme Court judges may not be able to clearly understand, or they have to go by the facts of a particular case and come up with a decision rather than absolute kind of decisions. So they are exceeding their, you can say, whatever freedom they have as a business entity. And that is why we say that they are challenging the Indian government and their powers to have a law which is justifiable from the courts in India, not from Twitter. Twitter cannot say that a particular information is say manipulated or not manipulated. That I have investigated, I am satisfied, it is manipulated. That decision, judicial decision, cannot be taken by the intermediary. Intermediary can tag, okay, wherever there is a doubt. But once there is an opposition from the other party, they will have to ensure that the platform remains neutral. The moment they take action like deciding about the content, they actually lose their protection under Section 79.
Even so in US, Navi, even in US, they did it for then president, you know.
Yeah, there also they actually did not agree with Trump. That was again a political decision. They were hoping that the next government will be of the Democrats, so they sided with Democrats, and they even closed the account of a sitting president, which is, I think, a little bit of excessive importance they have given to their own self as the business organizations. See, there was a time when we were telling that Facebook has got more number of members than any country in the world. So it is a kind of a country. These are all the expressions we use in good, kind of a compliment to the organization which has created such a vast network. But along with that, they have to understand that they have a responsibility. They cannot take on the sovereign governments if there is a clash with the government. They have to actually understand their limitations. That is where there is a problem now.
Mr. Navi, then there is always a big hue and cry, even from Indian media persons and media giants, that it is in violation of freedom of expression and speech.
Yes, freedom
Is it
of
really
expression. Freedom of expression under Article 19 has got Article 19(2), which is reasonable exceptions. Now, we cannot say that it's an absolute right which is given in the Constitution. It is always moderated. You can always debate on whether that moderation is relevant in a particular case or not. If you look at this guideline, intermediary guideline, government has been very, very circumspect in raising the exceptions, because the exceptions are limited to a few items which are there in Article 19, subsection 2, along with the Supreme Court guideline, which Rajendran was mentioning, that is wherever sexual abuse is there, rape information videos are there, that along with national security issues, okay, that is information relevant to sovereignty and integrity of India. That is all which is considered as
Public order.
Public order, but public and incitement of
Incitement.
but only in relation to national security, etc.
National
So
security. Yes.
there is a limitation, self-imposed limitation. If a particular information appears to fall into this category, under Section 69 of Information Technology Act, whatever is the competent authority, they can issue a notice to either Twitter or WhatsApp, and which means that there is a process, there is an accountability for the officer, and then information is sought, whether it is original, who has originated the document or whatever is that. Now, that is very much within the Indian Constitution. There is absolutely no, at least in my opinion, it does not violate the Constitution, though many people are holding it like that. It's not an absolute right for the government also. Say, government may issue a particular order, and if at that time, if Twitter feels that it is not a good order, they can go to the court, or post-event, after having given an order like that, an officer can be hauled to the court saying that your order was not in accordance with the provisions of the Act. So post the particular demand, it is subject to the court's intervention. Until that time, we have to trust the government or government officials and say that this is an empowerment they need for law enforcement.
Thank you. Now, I leave it to Jai Krishna, another senior journalist from Delhi, and Samaran, another mobile journalist from Chennai, to share, to ask you the questions, whatever they have in their mind. Seek clarification. Jai Krishna.
My first question is to first let me thank you, Mr. Srinivasan, for organizing the seminar at a short notice within 24 hours of the order coming in into effect. Mr. Navi, this order, there's a thin line in the various explanations, and though it is a guideline, it's still disputed in the Supreme Court. Yet an order is yet to come out, but this some sort of puts limitations in the freedom of expression, especially with the growth of social media and the social media influencers and the growth. I'm not talking about the traditional media in there. Is for people who express their opinions. Let's understand one fundamentally why Facebook and Twitter or any of the social media became famous, or the growth in India is because there was suddenly a voice, a platform given to the Indian citizens, right? So, but now it is sort of to identify who's saying what, right? Is it trying to bring down dissent? And we've seen in the last few weeks some of the Twitter accounts being banned and taken off, right? So how do you see this? Because there are people on these social media platforms. It could be even about spirituality. It could be if anybody who does a sustained activity, right? That's what they say, sustained activity of a specific cause and a clause, they are subject to, they don't call it a registration, but a voluntary disclosure of the ownership. How do you see this as bringing in each and every media user, a social media user, and everybody online into the regulation ambit?
See, we are talking of only accountability. Okay, not preventing a person from posting whatever he wants. In fact, if you look at navi.org and ask Rajendran, he will say that I should have been hauled for contempt of court several times by this time. Okay, so we do,
I said it, in fact.
yeah,
True.
but we do express our views, and but we are trying to say who is expressing it, and we are facing the consequences. So what is expected in social media is also just that. That is the identity of the person putting out his idea or information, let it be known. Anonymous postings, and only when even anonymous postings on non-controversial things is okay. I can put a joke or something like that. Where the problem is that there is somebody else elsewhere who is receiving the information, who feels that this information is in some way hurting him. So there is, just as I have a right to express my views, there is a person at the other end who is the recipient of information who may get hurt. Okay, it may be a religious concern, it may be a political concern. At that time, what this kind of law tries to do is to bring balance. Of course, where the government will come in is only when it gets into serious issues of, say, creating a religious divide or disharmony in the community, or to in a greater extent like this political discourses which go into fueling the farmers' agitation, or something like that. Other than that, I don't see why a genuine expression of criticism should be curbed. I feel that people can still express. They should be confident of what they are saying. Maybe their language, they will have to slightly tone it down, because in speaking sometimes, or in our anger, sometimes we use words, and you need a moderator like Rajendran to sometimes tell you that you are exceeding somewhere, so people like us go and correct that particular sentence. Okay. Now, digital media, the problem is the person who is publishing, I mean, is the same person who also writes. And the moment I get a thought in my mind, next moment it is there on Twitter. There is no, you can say, reasonable time for even my own mind to think whether what I am saying is correct or whether I should moderate. That is the problem with the media. In the general media, you have got an editor, you write something today, tomorrow it will get published. So the possibility of a news which is not to be published, getting released is less. Whereas in digital media, it is more. Therefore, some kind of regulation is required. And I don't see today, see now you're talking of some accounts being closed or something like that. Basically, some of these accounts are fake accounts, because if, for example, what is happening in the Sambit Patra or somebody else's case, if I know Sambit Patra has put in some fake document, I have a recourse to take him to the court. But if I don't know who is the person who has put in this thing, then only this need for removing the account comes. So this identity will remove that problem. So once this identity is there, if somebody wants a particular item to be removed, the platform may say that, you know who is this person, you please go to the court and get an order, because section 79 says court order only is binding on the organization. Of course, the competent authority, which is a government committee, also has got a reasonable power to ask for immediate takedown, subject to court's intervention. So what is required is just accountability. That is all. Okay. So I think if we understand the need for accountability in the general interest of the community, it will be fine.
1 minute.
Okay,
Samaran is waiting. Sir.
may just add about a
Rajendran.
couple of points. Navi, may I add a couple of points on what
Please,
Navi
please,
said
sir,
about
please,
Jai
sir.
Krishna? See, only about two sentences. Jai Krishna, you were talking about the anonymity aspect. On the question of anonymity, what the government now says is that whenever there's an anonymous posting, let the people tell me who actually is the person behind. To tell a very simple example, if so many posters coming up in the streets of a busy road, something, the posters, I mean, normal posters, Tamil Nadu, Chennai is quite popular for those posters, posters are even flexi boards, I would say, flexi boards or advertisement banners and all that, come up suddenly, which contain illegal or obnoxious or objectionable material, which have an impact on the sovereignty of the nation, or which have a reasonable ground to believe that it will incite the cultural fabric or public disorder. So police have got every right to nab the criminal who is behind posting those banners. Suppose the banner does not contain who the person behind is. There is no name of any organization or something. So in such a case, police certainly will take all the effort to find out the person who is hiding behind the anonymity. That is the same thing what we are now doing here now, actually. Instead of the physical posters, physical banners and all that, police say that let the government have the power. Whenever we want somebody to be identified behind this anonymity, let WhatsApp tell us who that person who is behind the anonymity is. Let WhatsApp disclose to us who that originator is. It's a very simple, perfectly legal. There is nothing illegal about it. There is nothing unlawful about it. It is perfectly, it is there already in our IPC, in so many state legislation. Every police is doing it in a physical world. Now, whatever is being done in the physical world, if somebody wants to do it in a digital world, then entire media cries hue and cry. I do not know why. Have I answered your question very clearly, Jai Krishna?
Yeah, but I'm not talking about the anonymity. It is putting the risk. See, you brought up this issue about the posters, right? Right below the poster, there is something called the gatekeeper policy, right? For all the media, in terms of even a pamphlet or a handout, the printer's name has to be published to lead to who gave the content. So is the flex boards. In a newspaper, the name of the editor and the publisher, which is different, has to be published, right? So it's perfectly okay for a platform to comply with it, but why should I, as an individual, disclose?
No. Wait.
Tomorrow, am I?
No, even on the
That is
digital
where
media,
exactly, yeah.
even on the digital media, you can have pseudonymity. Okay. Now, when a question is asked about who is the person, the platform owner may have to tell who is the person. That's all.
Exactly. Yeah, true.
Okay.
True.
The identification, verification is a voluntary system. The government has said if Vijay Shankar
Yes.
wants to identify, it is fine. But if I want to continue as a pseudonymous person, the platform can facilitate that pseudonymity. It is what I call as regulated anonymity. That is, it is anonymous to a certain extent, but a law enforcement, when it has got reasons to break that anonymity, the platform owner has to say that this member number so-and-so is so-and-so. That is, if that is done by the platform, it will be acceptable even under the current law.
Current law, yeah, exactly. True.
Okay, and also
No. The thing is, sir, good
Samala wants
afternoon.
to say something. You
Yeah,
wanted to
good
ask
afternoon.
something.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. My question is for the digital news publisher. This new regulation is just for an accountability, or this will be like a aggregation kind of thing for a digital publishers?
No accreditation. No
No
accreditation.
accreditation.
Yeah. Because
No
no
accreditation.
prior
Just an-
registration. That is the latest, this thing they have also clarified, no prior registration. But information
Okay.
about an organization, which is they have asked in the latest this thing, it is that if you are a digital media, then you have to say what is your name, what is your address, what is your contact details. That's all. That form is very simple. That appendix 1, 2, 3. It is a very
Yes.
simple format.
But it's a
Basically,
very simple, just contain just 3 lines it contains.
yeah.
Name, there's nothing else in it. Doesn't
Yeah.
want, there's not even a mention about the periodicity. Even that is not there, surprisingly.
Yeah, and there is no, rejection, so that there is no accreditation. There is the government is not saying that I will not, if I submit something for say PR sign, the government cannot say no. Okay, so therefore there is no accreditation.
No
But,
accreditation.
if you are a
Okay.
press person, you are anyway registering with the Press Council of India. If you are a TV person, you have the uplinking and other some licenses there. Digital media only, there was no such regulator so far. Now, as a
Yeah, that's the
information,
point, sir. The thing
Yeah,
is here in Tamil Nadu, for satellite and few printed medias have their own Tamil Nadu accreditation press cards. But
Yeah.
for digital media, there is no association. See, individual associations are there, IDMA kind of associations and all there. But for government-based association for digital publishers,
right.
there is no
Now,
accreditation.
Now
It's
this
not there.
guideline gives you a kind of a freedom to have your self-regulatory body. Level 2 self-regulatory body is an industry body. So don't look at the government to accredit you. You create your own, say, society or a Section 8 company or whatever way. The media companies can come together and call themselves as self-regulatory bodies. It is like a alter of this Press Council of India. See, Press Council of India, government appoints somebody. Here, there can be a number of digital media self-regulatory bodies, maybe one in each state, one for different types of media. And of course, in this the regulatory body, they do recommend that there can be a retired judge of the High Court or something like that. So some form of responsible judicial person has to be the chairperson, but it is still a body of the industry. Okay, instead of looking up to the government. So now it is like your private PCA, that is the Press Council of India. At least we should welcome that we are not regulated like in the earlier case. Somebody is appointed as a press council because he is good with the government. So we may not like that person. He may have his own biases. Now that is not likely to be there. So what this guideline says is individual digital media will accredit them. It's not accreditation, take a membership with a self-regulatory body. So that the ethical code, whatever they are talking of, particularly which is applicable to this OTTs, that somebody is there to supervise that. So that is the beauty of this particular thing. But last 3 months, said it is not that this act became effective only now on 25th of May. It came 3 months earlier. They gave 3 months time for people to register. In fact, I actually asked many of the Bangalore journalists, why don't you start a self-regulatory body? Okay. But everybody thought that we'll wait. And now suddenly we are talking of the guideline already being there. Now, two things are required. One, every digital media has to first have a self-regulatory practice. Self-regulatory practice is you have to look at your website or communication and see whether your name is there, whether contact address is there, whether the grievance person's name is there. That is the basic compliance requirement. Of course, you will ensure that the content is not defamatory, is not IPR infringing, that kind of thing, which all journalists know. So that you take care of whatever you are doing now. What is required is there are many websites, including many of the YouTube channels run by ex-journalists, where you don't get the address of the person. Physical address is not there if you want to send a registered notice. Email also is not there. And if you want to identify the person from the ownership of the website, they say privacy protected. Even if you go to who is data, you don't know who is the owner. I have had a similar experience recently when there was some defamatory videos posted about a police officer in Karnataka. Couple of these websites, we were not able to identify on the medium who is the journalist. We had to make use of some known journalists, and through their personal contacts we had to do. Now, right now, what is required is just that. That is, in every website, there should be a disclosure of who is the owner of this website, okay, and his contact address. The same person will be the grievance officer. If it's a very small entity, I am the owner of the website, I am the grievance officer. If I'm a big organization, I can have a different grievance officer. Now, that part we can do instantly, there is no problem. Now, being a member of a self-regulating body, there has to be a self-regulating body created. Now, we have not created anything in the last 3 months, but now that is what we have to do. In different places, we like journalists, have to put together our heads and say, we will create our own thing, self-regulatory body. In fact, as I told you, when Kapil Sibal's days when this was proposed, I had said that we will create a society of cyber law compliant bloggers. Okay, at that time we were talking of bloggers, not using the term journalists. So bloggers have to be cyber law compliant. So I wanted to create a society in which some criteria will be there. Every member will sign an ethical code or something like that. That is what now the government is asking. If journalists do it, it is good for serious journalists. It is bad for the, you can say, yellow journalist kind of people who will come and then put up a critical article about a celebrity and try to take money out of that or extract money out of that. Okay. Whereas good journalists, I don't see any problem. In fact, that is why I said that it will add value to good journalists, while it will try to make it difficult for bad journalists.
Mr. Navi, now that leads me to another question. Now that the new regulation gives a stipulation for Annex 1, Annex A, 2, 3, and who are all the people, you have to clarify before we close this show, who are all the people who have to file the application? And number 2, whether these YouTubers and even people like mobile journalists, like Summer and mobile journalists, or even our own e-magazines, are we required to, small people, are we required to file the application? And 1 minute.
Yeah.
1 minute. Before that, before Navi gives me an answer, I would like to place on record that our e-magazine is 15 years old, and for the past 12 years, even without any law or regulation, our Mr. Rajendran, editor, is a cyber law advocate, is whatever we don't call it, compliance or anything, he is the person who has to, before releasing it to the, I used to say gate pass, he has to give a gate pass, whether our e-magazine is perfectly compliant with the cyber law of the day. That for the past 12 years, we are doing it without any law, without any rules or without any guidance, which Mr. Rajendran himself is doing it. And only after his clearance, we release it to the outside. And now over to Navi, whether who are all the people who have to file the application?
Okay, you have to go through the definitions and of different kinds of people whom this note actually refers to. One is, of course, digital media. We will understand easily that any content which is published in electronic document format, it is digital media. That digital media will have two kinds of people. One is the intermediary. Intermediary, like let's say ISP, mobile service provider. They are the kind of intermediaries we used to discuss in the Information Technology Act area. That is a separate thing. Now, the second category of intermediaries who have become relevant now are the publishers of news and current affairs. That is the words which has been used. Okay. Now, what is news? That is not defined in the Act, but I hope everybody knows what is news and current affairs content. Now, one of the things which this definition says is, in terms of news and current affairs, it says includes newly received or noteworthy content. That is, there has to be something which is current. It's happening, and what is happening yesterday, today, it is being made available. That is one of the things. And there is also a term called curated content, which is relevant for this OTT. Where the platform tries to organize the various available audio visual elements and make it available to subscribers. So that intermediation is to bring the, for example, customers of Netflix with the content suppliers to Netflix. In defining this, when they talk about publisher, they use this exception also, that the word publisher of news and current affairs, it will of course include online paper, news portal, news aggregator, etc. But it will not include newspapers, replica e-papers of newspapers, because they are already covered under the Press Council and other things. and it says any individual who is not transmitting the content in the course of systematic business, professional or commercial activity. So suppose I maintain my personal YouTube channel and put something of my interest, I may not come under this publisher of curated content. But if I am doing it like what we are doing, you said about eZine. Now, though your eZine may not be considered as a commercial publication because you are not having subscribers from which you are collecting subscription money, etc. You are doing it as a professional service, as an extension of what you are doing. You can still be considered as a publisher and be, you submit your information. Okay. Beyond this, the clarifications have to come as we go along, because what we are now having is only one particular notification. Maybe later on it will be coming up.
How
So
about YouTubers? How about YouTubers?
now YouTubers, again, you have to see whether they are commercially minded YouTube channels, okay, where people create videos only for the purpose of, say, advertisement or something like that. And if it is entirely their own YouTube content, perhaps it is more like a vlog, okay, video blog,
Video blog.
rather than a publishing house. For example, even I can say Navi.org is like a blog. That is only one single person is putting whatever his information is there. It is not like an online newspaper. Okay. So same way, a YouTube channel, of course, I'm talking about my perception as of today. Okay. These are all things which are evolving, you can say. I am looking at the personal channels on YouTube as more like a vlog kind of a thing. That is one single person putting up his interest kind of a thing. When you make it into a OTT kind of platform and collect content from some publishers and then make it available, then you become a digital OTT publisher. So the difference between these two is difficult, but maybe
It's blurred. Yeah, in fact, yeah, right. In fact, as Navi rightly puts it, I also went through those guidelines. In many cases, actually, people normally started as just a casual blog of expressing my opinion. But as they progress, they put more and more opinion on the current affairs. Sometimes the line of distinction between what exactly is a news portal, what is a blog, what is a vlog, the distinction line gets blurred. It's not very clear. It's not very clear. So better to, anyway, the guidelines only says better have it registered. They don't tell you that any censorship or any other kind of declaration, something like that. There is nothing like that. I'll put it in this pre-RCD, how many pages, like nothing like that. Just get it registered, have your name there, that's all. It's a very, very simple formality, which I think there should not be any objection in complying with it.
see, beyond this, clarifications can be sought. Clarifications can be sought from the secretary.
Yes.
Mr. Navi, there is also one column in the application that are you part of a self-regulatory body? Now we don't have any self-regulatory body. What shall we do?
Yeah.
What shall we do?
No, right now you are saying that we are not a member of self-regulatory body and leave it. Okay.
Yeah.
But sooner or later we should try to do that. Okay.
We should become part of it.
We should become part of it. We will create our own thing. For example, PR Point can create something of its own. Okay. Invite some people whom you know and create a board. It's like a board which oversees the ethical guidelines. That's all. Okay. So you can get some reputed persons from the market and create nowadays on virtual meeting mode. You can do that.
Can we also start a self-regulatory body under the Digital Journalism Association of India?
I think we can. I think we can.
But it should be headed by a judge, judicial officer.
That is what they are saying now, that self-regulatory should may be headed by a retired judge or Supreme Court or an eminent person. No, please see here. Or an eminent person from the field of media, broadcasting, entertainment, child rights, human rights, or such other relevant field. And other members not exceeding 6, that is, it's a 7-member body. You want a though it starts with maybe headed by a retired judge, there is enough provision. If you get a reasonably eminent person, government is unlikely to reject that self-regulatory body. Okay. But it is for you to get together people who have some kind of eminence in the society, so that if it goes to the ministry should not feel this is a group of rogues who have come together and formed a self-regulatory body. That they should feel that it is a respectable body.
Should it require an approval from the?
No.
Should it require an approval?
It should be
require an
registered.
approval?
It should be registered, but we don't think they will exercise an accreditation this criteria. We have to wait and see. It says it has to be registered.
Just to clarify on Mr. Vijayashankar's Navi's point and the query which Mr. Srinivasan raised, the self-regulatory body is, a couple of them are already in existence. We are almost in the process of, we've already formed, which is called the Professional News Broadcast Standards Authority, headed by Justice Kher, the 44th Chief Justice of India, right, with two eminent persons. One is Dr. Shailesh Gandhi, the former RTA Commissioner, and Chintamani Rao, who comes from a media background. Mr. Rao used to be the CEO of Ogilvy and the CEO of Times Now and a whole lot of other media organizations. So it does require the government's blessings. So this self-regulatory body is the bridge between the bureaucracy, the judiciary, and the industry. Right. So it is like a quasi-court. So even in fact, in the cable and television network, I did not mention, but in this media ethics thing, they've clearly said it falls under the program code and the norms of journalist ethics. So that is the mandate. Instead of the government regulating it, it is a self-regulation panel which will adjudicate the complaints and act as a committee to oversee the implementation of ethics. I just thought I'll record this point.
So, one minute.
No, please,
How
sir.
can we fill it, sir? Take it as a scan copy or register and send it to PDF file, or?
Now this whatever form is there in the press release thing, you download it, fill up in your name and address, scan it, and send it back through email. You have to sign it. Yeah, they want a signature, so that's why we have to download it and then sign. Of course, if you submit a digital signature, they may accept it. So, but email, you can send it through email.
Okay.
And I think they have given 15 days time. Is it not, Ravi?
15 days to intimate and a total of 30 days for compliance.
No, 15 days for submission of application
Yes.
from the date of that circular.
And if there is clarifications, it will be up to 30 days.
Yeah, same email. Same email, Secretary, Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, we can seek any clarification. So as you said, the only problem will be to find a self-regulatory body. Now, self-regulatory body will have its own membership fees and so many things. So there, some time may be required. Whereas individually, if we can put in our compliance by way of website, cleaning it up with name and address, I think we are 90% into compliance.
To sum up, who are all the people who have to, you can just within your closing remark within 30 seconds, who are all the people who have to comply with these regulations and file the application to the ministry within 15 days. That is a sum up.
See, basically, we need to have news content. If anything can be classified as not a news content, it is, let us say I'm a college, I'm producing a library. Okay, that is not news actually. Okay, so distinction will be between whether the content can be classified nearer to a news and current affairs content versus a knowledge library. Then the knowledge people need not register because it is not a news portal, whereas the news people will have to do it. Now, the question is some gray area, like people like us who are, yesterday something happens, we write it on analysis on our website. So whether that will come under this news and current affairs, I don't know, because if you are restricting only to the professional things, like I focus on cyber law or this thing, not on too much of current affairs, then it may be okay. Maybe once in a while, we also comment on current affairs. That is different. So this distinction will be whether systematically you are a news portal. Okay, then you need registration. Otherwise, there is a gray area. If it's only registration, it is okay. Now, if you want to have be a body of self-regulation, regulatory body, then I have to find out somebody. For example, if Navi.org has to get into some self-regulatory body, I have to find out. Now, And that is the extra inform work which we need to do now.
Will there be any advantage by doing a registration for small content providers like you or YouTubers?
At this point of time, I don't see any great advantage or even disadvantage for small companies which are in the gray area. If you are a news kind of a portal, then better send this form. That there is no fees or anything for that. But if you are not in that category, then we'll see. Maybe I will still submit it now itself, leaving that self-regulatory body blank, because government also knows that there are no self-regulatory bodies at this point of time. Maybe next year we will see what happens.
Mr. Navi, that is what I was clarifying to you. There are already 3 self-regulatory bodies for the digital media.
Yeah, that's what you said. Correct. I understand that. I understand that. There are already many bodies. In fact, they have said in their circular itself that 60 bodies have already been in touch with them. But now they have to publicize, or we should come to know by personal contacts. Then we can.
Yeah. So just to add to the query which Mr. Srinivasan had, this is the first level, because this is not a registration, just as the compliance of self-compliance, self-declaration, disclosure of information. It is not a registration one. So that's why there's no fees. So once the data comes in, this is how I see it personally, is next is trying to curate those people. Then you start identifying, and there could be benefits like accreditation or something down the line. But it's still a little far away.
Jake, is there any fees for this? You said 60 bodies or so many bodies are there. Is there any charges for the self-regulation bodies?
Yes, there are membership charges. Actually, it is split into 2. One is an industry regulation fee, and one is a
ranges from minimum to maximum.
At the moment, it ranges from 1 lakh to 10 lakh rupees a year.
What will be happening if YouTubers or small people like our Presence or Samaran's Mobile or
So I cannot comment about other organizations, but
that is a bigger thing. For a smaller thing, for a smaller thing,
Srinivasan, people like us, FDPPI will start, for example, along with you, let us say, we will put together 7 people and we will say either it is free or 1,000 rupees or 500 rupees, because we are not expecting a company which is having some 10 lakhs per day transaction to be our members. At least
that's the one thing which we thought at while forming the IDMA, which is sort of a sister organization.
Yeah.
So and at NPF, I could tell you only for these people we've kept it as low as 50,000 rupees a year fees, because when it comes to compliance, even if you file a court fee, that when you hire a lawyer, when a complaint comes in, that is the minimum cost you could look at.
No,
but it can never be free. It can never be free.
Srinivasan, FDPPI can work with PR Point. If we can get somebody, we will not look at a judge or something. Judges are all very expensive, but eminent persons otherwise in the field, if you can get, we will say we will restrict our activity to only individual bloggers.
What are the roles of the self-regulatory bodies? Have they come out with the regulation?
No, yeah, they have said 4 or 5 points. One is oversee and ensure alignment and adherence by the publisher to the code of ethics. Okay. That is, we have to tell him what is the code of ethics, particularly if he has got a video content, it should not have this obscene content, etc. Provide guidance to publishers on the various aspects of the code of ethics. Address grievances if they have not been resolved by the publishers within 15 days. Hear appeals by complainant against the decision of the publishers. And advise, give some guidance or advisories. Those are the things which are said there. Now, of course, this is not, we can, for example, we have our online mediation center where we try to resolve disputes on data related disputes. Now, DDMAC. Now, the DDMAC can also provide a mediation platform in which a mediator or an arbitrator can work and use it. That is what we can do. Even the other established big self-regulatory bodies need to have a grievance redressal mechanism. And individuals also have to have a grievance redressal mechanism. So that is what we are creating as a DD-MAC. Now, of course, this publication is not the activity of FDPPI. Is not the core activity of FDPPI, like perhaps what it is for you. You are more into the media than us. But I'm suggesting that if there are large organizations, they are looking at Sun TV being a member, ZTV being a member, they can put this 1 lakh, 2 lakh, 3 lakhs, 10 lakhs as membership fee. Fine, there is no problem. And you cannot do that. No, you have got e-sign. I have got, say, Data Protection Journal of India. We are doing it free of charge, pro bono kind of a thing. I cannot even pay 10,000 rupees for that membership on an annual basis. Okay, so and there are many people like us. Okay, so maybe if we go big tomorrow, we don't mind. But right now, it is not this thing. So we may have to do something for SME sector here, or even micro sector here. I think there is a potential.
Does it require an approval from the ministry, MIB?
We have to register with them. And
There is no
definitely,
registration, but there is no formal registration. now.
I
But
have already asked for format. In fact, the first week itself, I asked for the format. They have
There
not
is
yet
no
developed
format.
it.
There is no format. There is no accreditation or registration for a self-regulating body because it's per se self-regulating, but it is preferably to have under the Societies Act, Indian Trust Act, or Section 8 or 25 of the Indian Companies Companies Act of 2013. That's how we have registered. So there's no, but you require the blessings of the ministry because the maximum number of complaints comes from the ministry. Let's keep in mind that we are not talking about the MIB ministry alone. The MIB ministry routes the complaints not only of content with respect to MIB, but also under the Indian Consumer Act, Drugs and Cosmetics Act. There are about 16 other laws.
Should it be
Navi's video is frozen, sir. Yeah.
Navi, should it be a body, a trust, or a society?
So it should be either a Section 8 company or a society.
Or a trust?
Or a trust, yes.
It should be a body.
Yeah, it should be a body.
With the chairman, with trustees, or
Yeah, we are all there. No, we are already having our own eligible organizations. Okay. So you are in media, I am in cyber crime kind of a thing. We can say that we are eminently capable of looking at this particular issue. Then like we have started our own organizations like FDPPA or something, we can also start this organization. Particularly if people like you are there to lead, definitely it can be done. I would not like to do that because I am not the person in that particular media industry to the depth that you have.
Digital Journalists Association is also there with us, and probably through this conversation, I make it open to the public so that they can send us the feedback. They can send us more suggestions how to go about.
Yeah,
and we will also consider in a committee of experts like you. Anyway, thank you very much, Navi and Mr. Rajendran, who is not able to hear, and Jai Krishna and Samaran for,
Yes, sir,
for sparing your very valuable time this evening and sharing your thoughts. And really, this will be of a great use for our viewers, and the viewers may kindly send their feedback and comments in the slide that is coming up. You can also give us suggestions more about the formation of self-regulatory body, how we can go about. We will also supplement. We will be obeying the rules of the law of the country. Thank you very much for all of you.
thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.